You're listening to Represent, the Queer Musical Theatre podcast. My name is Dr James Lovelock, and I'm an academic and a huge musical theatre fan, exploring the representation of all things queer in the musical theatre industry. This week we are talking to the genius writer that is Yve Blake and the genius performer that is Mary Malone. Mary appeared as Jules in Yve's musical Fangirls at the Lyric Hammersmith Theatre last year, and recently workshopped Yve's new show Mackenzie, which is a retelling of Macbeth as a child television star. In this episode, we discuss female, queer and trans representation in musical theatre and explore how to make a welcoming creative space for queer performers. As always, you can follow us on your favourite podcast platform, and don't forget to share this episode on social media. Let's get started.
Hi, my name is Yve Blake. I write for film, TV and theatre. I wrote a musical called Fangirls and my pronouns are she, her.
Hi, I'm Mary Malone. My pronouns are she, her. I am an actor. Recently been in Fangirls the Musical by Yve Blake.
She really ate that.
And also recently been in a Netflix show called Missing You and Doctor Who.
Amazing, lovely. So we're going to start with the show that you worked on together, which is Fangirls. Yve, if you could tell us maybe a little bit about it, and then Mary, if you could tell us a little bit about how you got involved in it as a starting point, and we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, okay, so Fangirls, would you believe, is a show I began writing in ancient times, 2016, and premiered in 2019 in Australia, and then kind of had this wild life there where it came back twice. It did a national tour, it went to the Opera House, and then it premiered in London at the Lyric Hammersmith, but produced by Sonia Friedman Productions. And Fangirls is about a 14-year-old girl called Edna. Now, she has scored a scholarship to a very posh all-girls school, and luckily she's found her two best friends in the world, but unluckily it's the first day of year 9, and things have changed, right? They're like, hey, people in our year, they're getting kissed, they're getting boyfriends, they're getting girlfriends, chop, chop. We got to grow up, okay? Then it's a new world order. And Edna is shamed for loving Harry. Harry is someone she's never met. Harry is in the world's biggest boy band, Heartbreak Nation, and Edna just knows that she and Harry share like a spiritual connection. And she believes this for many different reasons, but her friends basically kind of tell her when she comes back to school, hey, like we're too old to be interested in a boy band. Or specifically her friend Jules, who's really kind of going through it. And then she's got a friend Brianna, who's sadly a bit of a sheep to Jules and is very conflict averse and doesn't really stick up for Edna. So Edna now is kind of down 2 friends. Her relationship with her single mom is really, really strained. You know, she's like a scholarship kid who doesn't have the means that her friends have, but she loves Harry, and more importantly, she feels it's her destiny to save him because she feels she can see something no one else can see, which is that Harry has depression eyes, okay? He's not doing so well. It's kind of a Free Britney situation. And then, like an act of God, Harry's band announced for the first ever time that they are going to tour to Australia, where she lives, and she knows this is her one shot to save Harry. But how is a scholarship kid with no money whatsoever going to get to that concert, let alone meet Harry, let alone save him? That's what Fangirls confronts. And let's just say that Edna is forced to take things to criminal lengths in order to try to succeed in her quest. How did I go? Oh, and it's feminist at the end.
Hooray!
Yes!
Yes!
Just at the end, though.
And it's kind of gay on the way through.
Yeah.
That is my favourite description of a musical. It's feminist at the end and gay on the way through. I love it. So, Mary, tell us a little bit about how you got involved in Fangirls.
Yeah, so, oh my gosh, when did I audition for the workshop? Like, I can't even think when that was.
I think it's 2022.
2022, which is, it's actually mad how long, like, Fangirls has been part of my life. I'm like, oh, that's so long ago.
Babe, try being me.
I know. Oh my God, honey. Yeah, and the audition came about, and I knew about the musical already, but I kind of, I was up for auditioning, but I didn't train in musical theatre, and it's not like something I sort of ever did professionally. It's something I did when I was younger. But yeah, I auditioned for the workshop and like was just, really like surprised and excited that I got to, play Jules for that workshop.
Jules is Edna's meaner friend, or the friend who's going through it and who criticizes her and who kind of becomes her adversary. But Jules is also hands down the funniest role in the show.
Oh, yes.
So when we are casting the role, if we're the toughest on the people who have to play Jules, and no one could eat it like Miss Mary Malone. We said we need that girl, and she was in the workshop. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, bless you, thank you. Yeah, I mean, Jules was like, it's kind of like a dream role for me. I grew up like wanting to be Sharpay Evans in High School Musical. I remember having a poster of Sharpay on my wall as a kid, and I remember like my auntie, who like clearly had no idea about me, was like, is that your girlfriend, Mary? And I'm like, no, that's me. That's who I'm gonna be. So yeah, I guess like Jules was like kind of like, yeah, she's got that like, you know, wannabe mean girl about her, but actually is like super lovable or you know, yeah, but with like a lot of flaws. But yeah, so much fun. Did the workshop and was, I mean, it was just like the most incredible experience actually ever. I felt so like held and celebrated through all of it, and there was so much room for me in the room, and yeah, just had the best time. So then when the auditions came about for the production at Lyric Hammersmith, obviously I was like, I really want to do this, and then I was lucky enough to then get the part for the actual show. It was amazing to go through like a workshop and then get to do it in the end. You know, which doesn't always happen. So yeah, that was like a real blessing. And that's kind of how it came about.
The role of Jules is just so lovely, but I think there's something very special that you bring to it, Mary. And I always remember particularly the way you moved as that character. And there's a lovely scene later on. I won't spoil too much, but there is a scene where there is a boy tied to the bed that Jules has to go. Who
could that be, I wonder?
And Jules has to go and investigate. And there was just something that you did in the way that you moved towards that character. And also, I think it's something that happened sort of all the way through the show as well. There's a variety of walks that you have.
I completely agree with you. Like, it's also so special as a writer because you agonize over a scene and making it funny enough, and what you have to play with are the words on the page, and you try to make it as funny as you possibly can, and then you watch actors do it and you know all the words, so nothing's going to be funny to you about the words. But then Mary Malone walks across the stage with her eyes like dinner plates because she's like pissed off or surprised, and it was so fun. In rehearsals I was just pissing. I felt like I actually got to watch the show, which as a writer you don't ever get that experience like an audience member does, right? Because you already know it. You know what's going to happen. But yeah, Mary, sorry if this makes you uncomfortable, but you gave me the opportunity to see my work in a whole new way, Diva. Okay, sorry, to be honest.
That's so sweet. Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, I remember like, but this is just shows you how amazing the room was, that I really just felt like I got to offer so much. You know, that maybe like wasn't, you know, I think there was a moment where I may or may not have turned into a dinosaur from Jurassic Park. And you know, I mean, that wasn't written down to happen, but there was just space in this room where I got to, just really play. I think that, you know, to see me like that, that's to see me feeling really free and powerful, and that I don't always get to feel like that, you know, in this job. So yeah, what a blessing. Oh my goodness, yeah, I'm just thinking back to all the absolute bonkers stuff.
It was a really goofy room.
It was such a goofy room. Like, oh my gosh, I mean, I'm just thinking about everyone and that was in that room.
I think what's fun, right, is like the show itself. I described the synopsis, but like what I was interested in discussing when I wrote the show is like I was inspired to write the show in ancient times when Zayn Malik left the band One Direction. And it became a global news story, and I followed the coverage and was like, hold on. I keep on seeing in these articles in 2015 the fans of One Direction being described with words like hysterical, insane, psycho, over the top, too much, pathetic. And I asked myself if these journalists would reach for any of those adjectives if they were describing like an upset that happened in men's sport, and they were just trying to describe sports fans. And so like the show itself is like a big celebration of like the enthusiasms of girls, gays, and theys, and it's really a celebration of like hyperactivity and just loving something without apology. And so, and like all the characters are like 14 and 15, and so it was really fun because in the room, our extraordinary director Paige Rattray, like directors often will be like, okay, what's the biggest version of this scene, and then we'll tone it down. And I feel like in Fangirls, it's like, what's the biggest version of the scene, and then we'll just keep it like that. Yeah, it was really fun.
I remember feeling that like that. I was like, where's the line? Like, oh my God. Like,
as you learned, there was the limit does not exist.
Oh, Paige. Yeah, Paige is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, she's a pisser. We love her.
Yeah.
I loved that about Fangirls. And I think the way I described it was camp. Very, very camp. And I'm sure that maybe not be the word that you used in the room, but...
Oh, no, absolutely. Like, bingo. Yes.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, loved it because there's something about that really makes it feel inclusive, particularly to a queer audience, I think. But also it's something that we often get told not to do. We get told, like you say, to do less. And I think having the space for that in Fangirls is so important and was the thing that was so lovely about it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So, I mean, tell us a little bit more about the space and the room and what made it such a great space to work in. One of the things I'm quite interested in is whether there is a difference being in a room which is, I've used the posh term, queer infused, as if it's a tea bag.
I love it.
Oh, I love some queer infused.
Yes, but having a queer infused space, are there differences being in that space where queer people are allowed to kind of blossom and contribute? What makes that space, what makes those things happen?
I feel like Mary's best to speak to this because it's interesting. Fangirls is the first musical I wrote. There's been so many iterations of it. And I've got other musicals I've written and have developed, but Fangirls is the only musical I've written that I've seen go all the way through to production. And it has always been directed by Paige. Yeah. So I don't really know another way other than filling the room with gay people, because why would you do anything else?
Exactly.
Do you like it doesn't... It's scary to think of it not being like that. But Mary, you could speak to... You've had the experience of Fangirls and can contrast it against other experiences, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess just like there was just like a real sense of celebration for like individuality. Like I'm even just thinking about like the very first audition for the workshop, and I think like whenever we would walk in, like one at a time for the like solo call, whatever, I'm pretty sure that you, Paige, and whoever else was there applauded us as we walked in through the door.
Let's go.
Yeah, there was such energy and like, like, you know, I think it's like if you have the awareness that like a lot of spaces don't feel safe for queer and trans people, and it's tough for us in this industry to feel like we stand a chance maybe, or that people want to hire us. So when there's that level of like celebration from the start, you're like, okay, like that's a hurdle that you sort of get past straight away. And I think seeing, you know, and seeing other queer and trans people like in the space is just a huge one. I've done so many projects where it's just me, but I'm pretty sure, like, I'm just thinking about like the cast of Fangirls, and I'm just like, I'm pretty sure we were all queer and trans actually. Like I'm like, and also to be like, I don't think it says anywhere in the script necessarily about like Jules's identity but it's a show that like can hold like everyone or whoever is going to step into that role, and sometimes, of course, I think like trans specific stories are important, but there's something about like being trusted with work that's not just about your transness that's like really liberating and exciting, and yeah, Fangirls was definitely that for me, and I think that there was just like a real like. There was a lot of space held where you could talk about anything in the room, and if anything was bothering you, or and that was for everything. It wasn't just about like, you know, I don't know, maybe my specific experience, but I felt like I nothing ever could turn into anything big or messy, because I was able to talk about everything I thought and felt from the start, and that included, I guess, lots of things, like maybe like certain thoughts about the character, or a big one for me was singing and keys, and you know, I guess like a lot of musicals aren't written in a key that's maybe accessible for trans women. But Fangirls was kind of so flexible for me, and everyone really just came together and just wanted to make it work. I think I remember you saying, Yve, just like, we just want to put this key where it feels really yummy for you. And I was just like, that's such a nice way to say it. Like, and for me, like, you know, it's not necessarily all about like how it's going to sound for everyone else. Like, where do I feel good and confident in my voice? Instead of like pushing me somewhere uncomfortable. So yeah, that was like, that really changed it for me. That really made me feel better, because I'm not necessarily the most confident singer or have like loads of training. But I felt really held in that.
If you're interested in LGBTQ+ representation in musical theatre, check out our website www.queermusicals.com for lots more information about musicals with LGBTQ+ characters. It's so gorgeous, though, your singing work in that show and the way that it all fitted together. I loved it. So a theme that's come up a lot in this series of the podcast is about writers being flexible about changing keys of songs.
Yes.
How difficult is it to
Not that difficult. Hello. It's so easy. Oh my gosh. Like, I feel very strongly about this because it's interesting. Through writing Fangirls, have made so many friends in the musical theatre community, lots of whom are femme actors who, let's say, you know, they're auditioning for Glinda.
Yeah.
And I hear reports about like, okay, well, maybe you can't be over X height to play that role, and you have to be able to hit this note, and you have to be able to do it 8 times a week. And like, I just can't imagine what it's like if you're someone who could bring so much charisma to a role, but there's such a cookie cutter because the show is a product, you know, it becomes inflexible if it's this globally exported idea. And I just think that's so, it's kind of dangerous, right? Because then you will have all of these femme graduates who are like, you know, like girls, gays and theys who are like, oh, fuck, well, the majority musical theatre, classical musical theatre has been written by men, and they have made women sing as high as they want, because isn't it so fun when they hit these big high notes? That's such a narrow way that maybe young femi-grads feel that they can express themselves, or feel that they have to I just can't imagine the insecurity that an alto would feel knowing that most of like the leading parts in musical theatre maybe aren't for her. And I just go, and why? I want to see what everyone can bring to a role, and I think that's so exciting, you know? Like, what Mary brought to Jules was extraordinary, which is evident from the fact that we put her in the workshop and then we're like, yeah, we obviously need her to do the full thing. And it's also, I mean, I guess, I don't know, this work is about teenage girls, right? Yeah. And teenage girls can be so many millions of things. It would just feel so like corrupt and weird to be narrow and be like, no, this one has to sound like this and has to. It's been a joy with every production we have done of this. I've seen 5 casts do this show, and with every production to kind of go, oh, what's your Jules? What's your Brianna? What's your Edna? You know what I mean? So I don't know. And it really isn't that hard. I think where people. The arguments that people make are about like the harmonies. You know, if you change the lead line, what does that do to all the harmonies? Write some fucking new harmonies. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I really don't think, in my experience, it hasn't been a burden. It has only been joyful, and I just hope that like everyone kind of gets with that program.
We were talking to Robin Grant, who wrote "Unfortunate: The Untold Story of Ursula the Sea Witch," the musical parody.
That's so bad.
Which is amazing and is on in Salford over Christmas this year.
And is Ursula gay?
Ursula is very gay.
Good. Important.
Of course.
I guess Ursula is very queer is probably the better way to put it.
Okay, great.
But actually, you've also had we had River Medway on the podcast, and they played Ariel, which was amazing casting. And they were saying that they changed the keys, you know, every time, and they changed the harmonies every time that they rewrite the show. They put on a new production of the show, and it just seems that that's so joyful to be able to do that with shows.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking is how beautiful the song Disgusting was, because of the specific vocal timbres that you'd written for and the way that you'd written the harmonies in that song, and we got all of the very different timbres of the girls singing it, and you know, and then as the rest of the cast joined in, and it's such a beautiful song, and there's so many of those moments in Fangirls as well.
It's funny you bring up that song. So for the context of the listeners, there is a song in Fangirls called Disgusting, and like where the chorus arrives is it's 3 teenage girls separately in their bedroom, and they're talking about how privately they worry that actually, like, there's a line in it, will I ever get to stop just pretending to feel hot? What if this is it? And just the idea of looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, what if I'm actually disgusting and it's never going to get any better and I'm never going to grow tits and like what have you, like all of the insecurities that are sold to like young girls, gays and theys. And I'm really proud of that song because I think when I sat down to write it, I was like, okay, so a theatre audience is guaranteed, like most people who reliably buy tickets to theatre are people over the age of 50, 60, 70. And there's going to be lots of, my dad, when I started writing this, was like a 70-year-old man. And I was like, if I start a song and it's like, sometimes I worry that my buddy isn't right, I feel like he would lean back, switch off and go, yeah, this is the issue song where the girls talk about how they hate themselves. I know. And so in constructing that song, actually each verse opens kind of with like a joke, and it's a song that gets the audience laughing and then punches them in the gut. And I always find it's really fun to watch actors do that song because it gets the audience laughing and then they realize what the song's about. And it's really fun watching actors play with that. But also, you were just talking about harmonies, and someone who deserves a massive shout out is our exquisite musical supervisor, Zara Stanton.
Yeah, we love Zara.
We love Zara because she worked on the show in Australia and was so extraordinary, worked so quickly, and is equally excited about this point that we just made, which is like just change the key. And she's kind of like so excited by it, and she took time with every single person in the cast to find the right key. And like a great example too is Tariq Jarrett, who played Salty Pringle, who is cis but has a beautiful voice that lives somewhere totally different to anyone else who's played that role. Everyone else who's played that role had this kind of like tenor voice with this falsetto kind of functionality, whereas Tariq's yummy place was much lower. I can't remember how many semitones we brought the song down. I want to say like 5 semitones, and it was gorgeous. And it just was. It was just a different world. And like, the last thing that I want to do to a performer, particularly a queer performer, is make them feel like they're in an outfit that doesn't fit them, and that they that they have to contort themselves in some way to be the right thing. That's just not it.
Yeah, it's great that you brought up Tariq and Salty Pringle, who is just such a wonderful character. And I think, I was going to say, actually, for those of us that are queer, is perhaps one of our gateways into the show. But actually, in the cast that did the Lyric Hammersmith show, there were so many places. I would say I really connected with Max James Hodge in the ensemble, because that's the sort of kid that I was when I was growing up. But yes, Salty Pringle is such an important part of the show. And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how that character works, and maybe also, Mary, a little bit about how you you didn't have scenes with that character, but how that worked in terms of having that queer character in the story.
Oh my gosh. So Salty, I want to explain to the listeners like who Salty Pringle is.
Yes.
And then I want to talk about, honestly, how like fun and challenging it was writing that part, because Edna is our protagonist and she is a passionate and talented fanfic writer. She writes fan fiction about Harry and his depression, and how her fanfic series in particular is about a fan setting Harry free and then living on the run together so that he's free from the trappings of fame, and she runs away from her life and they live happily ever after. And she makes a friend online named Salty Pringle, who is a very passionate, talented, queer fan fiction author who lives in the States. Yeah. And when Edna needs to kind of cook up a plan for how she might truly meet Harry in real life, she pitches to Salty Pringle that what if she wrote a fanfic, where a teenage girl finds a way to meet Harry, and on the basis of plotting a fanfic, Salty provides incredible insight into how maybe someone could do it. And Salty, of course, thinks that this is like a fanfic they're co-writing, whereas Edna, we realize, has intent to use this as a blueprint. Yeah. But it's really interesting, right? Because Salty says a lot of lines that are really important to me in the show. Like, there's a moment where Salty suggests that Edna, this is going to sound so sick out of context, that the protagonist of their story pretends to have a terminal illness, so she is picked to be a girl that's brought on stage and serenaded to at the concert, because that's a part of every concert. And Salty makes the point that like they never pick boys to sing to, but if your protagonist is a girl, she has a shot.
Yeah.
And Salty kind of points out a few things about the fact that like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the fact that like if you're a little boy who loves, say, One Direction, you're never going to get a pronoun, a he, him pronoun in one of their songs, and just kind of, looking at like heteronormativity in the world. All to say, Salty Pringle is a really important character to me, but let's look at him like, or them, like there's no specific pronouns for Salty in the script. It's like who, whatever. But Salty also assists the protagonist, right? And so it's really interesting because this character is a queer character who really matters to me. But if you've ever written a musical, you know that what you end up cutting more than anything are the scenes. It's like, let's get to another song, let's get to another song. So how then do you keep a character full-bodied and dimensional when really their key thing they must do is assist your protagonist in her journey? And yet you also don't want to write a gay assistant. You know what I mean? You also don't want to write someone who is a plot device and who's a magical queer character who just comes to help a girl who's going after a guy. Now, how does Edna identify? I don't know if she knows, but she's 14 and she wants to save a man. So that's what she's up to for these 2.5 hours. And like Salty has been really interesting to write. It's also interesting that in every cast, Salty's been played by a black person. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, I also don't want to make like a magical assistant. So I'm really lucky in that, like, I know what my intentions are with Salty, and I've been able to collaborate with every performer who's played that role to figure out how, like, you know what I mean? So how Salty can be like a constructive queer character and not accidentally fall into a trope that I never set out to construct. And what Salty also does, I should say, apart from assist Edna, is like represent... Like, Salty has always had this song in the show called Feel So True about the fact that when Salty is writing fanfic about Harry, like, who cares if it's a daydream, baby, it feels so true is the lyric. And it's the idea of like, how do I even put this? Like, you know, you're right to kind of construct your own safe space where you are valued. And or what are the lyrics of this song? When this world is messy and cruel, I'll build one that's better. I'll go there with you where we could be anyone we want to be. Feels more real than reality. Don't care if it's a daydream, baby. It feels so true. And it's about, you know, it's about the right for teenagers to imagine like a better space for themselves.
And that it's funny because I literally had those lyrics in my head just as you said them just then. And for me, that is totally what the internet is for girls, gays and theys. And it's such a perfect song for that. And I think when we're looking at the possibility of Salty being seen as, you know, a gay best friend or a black best friend or however it might be, actually it's those moments. And there's another lovely moment that I picked out as well where Salty talks about his parentally assigned name. And it's those moments that take that character from being out of that trope, because the problem with that trope is that you can't imagine them doing anything else. With Salty, that you can imagine their whole home life and their whole other story, and there's a whole other musical to be written about Salty.
There really is.
And, that's a relief.
Yeah, and that's what I love especially about that. But it's also, I think, I mean, we can come on to the character Brianna as well, but I think Salty is predominantly like the first explicit queer character that we see in the show. And I guess there's something really important, Mary, about kind of having that queerness up front in a show that's being performed, I suppose.
For sure. Yeah. So transcoded with Salty. And feels so true as well. It's so like, it just speaks to me so much. And also about like, being like a young person, a young trans person online and like finding my people. What an incredible song. I think it's really interesting having a character like Salty that's like, you know, maybe like more explicitly a queer character, but then like, and then what happens when you then make other characters queer or played by queer actors? And I'm just like, that's such a great thing that doesn't happen enough, is that there's opportunity for like more than one of us.
Yes.
Like I really enjoyed playing Jules because like like that's such a different character to Salty, like completely. Like maybe someone who is so hidden in so many ways, or trying to like conform in so many ways, or trying to like get through, you know, being at school and being a teenage girl. Like, oh my gosh, what a tricky thing.
That's true, and it should be said to the listeners, Jules' like number one mission the whole show is that she has to get a boyfriend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone in the year is getting a boyfriend and she needs to get one, and she has this toxic line to Brianna, who's gay, of like, it's easier for you, there's girls everywhere, we go to an all-girls school, I have to outsource, I have to find boys in the wild. She's like toxically het. It was so fun to
And
write.
I love to do that. I love that bitch. So fun. And I'm also like, sometimes the trans girls are like that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just to say, like, we're like, and I love to do that, like, to represent trans people as like messy people who say some crazy shit sometimes, which is great. But also like so relatable, like as a doll as well. Like, of course, like wanting that like approval and needing a boyfriend and needing to be like the other girls, which is like such a great layer that comes from casting trans people in non-specific parts, right? Because we can add like a whole layer of story and depth. But yeah, I think I always thought it did hit me doing the show. I was like, oh, it's so sad that Jules doesn't get to meet Salty, because I'm also just like, oh my gosh, she really could do with Salty in her life, you know. And me and Tariq would just, we used to like play with that. I think that was quite fun, and
That's so cute.
Yeah, so cute.
The other person I spoke to, who's actually going to be in the next episode of this series, is Gracie McGonigal, who played Lily. And she said that her and Tariq had a thing where they were kind of, between them were the internet. And perhaps, you know, different sides of the internet.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think it's really lovely how, in a show like Fangirls, even over quite a short run, you can get those sort of relationships between ensemble characters, between different characters, and these whole untold stories that happen in the background of shows, which I know happen in all sorts of other long-running shows as well. But, you know, I love the fact that there's all that space for the ensemble, and, you know, and the ensemble often gets a multi-role. You know, they play across gender, so, you know, sometimes you'll have, you know, well, everybody on the stage will be female, or then you have the lovely scene at the beginning of Act 2 in the concert where the whole boy band, other than Harry, are played usually by female or non-binary performers. Which it's just so important, because we're very used to, you know, there being scenes where male actors are playing female characters, and it's usually done in a not particularly nice way for laughs, but actually, by having that flexibility across the whole cast, it means that it literally is gender play.
I really agree with that, and I really feel like, I've got lots of feedback on that over the years of people, people just commenting on noticing that, and the way that gender became like so fluid across the multi-rolling, and it's funny. It's something that never occurred to me, but we get lots of feedback on from people being like, "Wow," and I'm like, like it's funny when people describe this work as being radical in one way or another, because it's like it's more disappointing. Like it's like, do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to be applauded for this being an outlier. You know what I mean? I just want this to be the norm.
If you want to follow us on social media, you can use queer.musicals on Instagram or Facebook, or you can follow me at Dr James Lovelock on Instagram. So Fangirls is just one of my favourite things that I've seen. I think that I've seen ever. I just love it so much.
James, that means so much.
Oh, but I talk about it all the time, and I share it with my students, and I hope that it has, you know, future life in all sorts of different ways.
Babes, thank you so much.
But I'd also like to talk to you a little bit about your other project that you've just been recently working on, which is Mackenzie.
Yes.
Which I think you've just workshopped in Australia and in London as well.
Oh my gosh, I would love to talk about Mackenzie. You know, it's amazing. So like, Fangirls going on in the UK was huge. It's like the hardest I have ever worked, and afterwards I was so fried, and I was like, I'm just going to do a writing exercise for fun, and I'm going to write something that isn't for anything. It is just for the point of making me laugh. And I came up with this premise, which is like, what if Macbeth was a 13-year-old child star?
Wow.
And what if Lady Macbeth was her ruthless stage mom?
Ooh.
And what if I set this story behind the scenes of a popular kids channel that I cannot name that was very popular in 2006 in America? And what if I set it in 2006? And it was really fun. I put it in this like really nostalgic time I remember so well. Shakespeare had already done the structure. Like it was the biggest pleasure to write this. And then I announced a reading in my hometown of Melbourne. I mean, I'm moving to London, but I like, living there now, with all my friends reading the roles. And the reading sold out like in half an hour, thanks to like people who love Fangirls. And so I was like, great, I don't have to market the reading, easy. I'm just going to use this as sort of accountability. But then all these producers reached out and they said, bitch, what do you mean you have a Macbeth adaptation? Do you know how many kids have to study Macbeth? Do you know how many people we could sell tickets to? And so I accidentally, I guess, made this thing that to so many people had a commercial potential because, I'm now realizing like, a lot of students have to study Macbeth.
Yes.
And a retelling of it that's like a bit yassified and a bit cunty. Sorry about the C word, but like I didn't realize there was a market for it. So it's ironic that the thing that I made to take a break from like the oppressive commercialness of theatre and constantly trying to figure out what would succeed in the market and have high market potential. Like it's ironic that I made this thing to go, I don't want to think about that for a second. And then I've literally just never had more interest in a project. Everyone's like, do you know how many high schools we can get along to this? So I hope it goes well. I hope it like lives up to their expectations. But yeah, it's going to kick off next year in Australia at a company I can't name, and then it looks like it's going to tour, which is exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. And Mary, tell us a little bit about the workshop and your involvement in that and
She ate that.
and who you played and all that sort of thing.
Oh gosh, I had the best time. I mean, I'm always going to be up for doing anything with this one for sure. Oh my God, it was so good. It was like a gorgeous room and amazing cast.
We had Dylan Mulvaney in the lead.
Yeah,
Shout out.
There was this gorgeous, sorry, I'm totally interrupting you, but there was this gorgeous scene where you played like, I guess sort of her momentary best friend. That was really special.
Oh my God, that was so fun. It was, it's so nice like doing scenes with Dylan. I mean, she's incredible. So gorgeous. It was such a good time, and it was, we didn't have long. It was for a read. We like got it together real quick.
Yeah, we rehearsed in 5 hours.
5 hours, which is insane. But like, there was just like a lot of fun in the room, and we were just there to do it, and we all just like stepped up and did that. I love to do like things like this though, where you don't really have so much time to think, and you've really just got to like go for it. That spontaneity was really fun. You were going to say something?
No, I was just going to say I'm thinking about what the listeners need to know, and it's like, well, there's a cast of 6 who play 21 characters, so I don't know how many people you play.
Oh my gosh! I mean, oh my God, a fair few.
A fair few, and it's just us reading it at music stands for potential producers and stakeholders and whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really fun. It's I'm excited for it. And you know what? It's funny because my friend came along and she was like, like yet again, such a queer cast.
Yeah.
And the story, not explicitly a queer story, kind of just like the story of Mackenzie is the story of Macbeth, and it's a story of ambition, and it's also in this iteration. It's in Macbeth, Lady Macbeth has to borrow Macbeth's power because she's not a woman, and masculinity is your route to power. Like the fact that he's a man gives him access to power, and in this retelling, what gives Mackenzie her route to power is she is young, right, and that is power, and Ruth cannot access that power because Ruth is Mackenzie's mum, because she's in her own words past it, and so. Like it's interesting. It's a story about ambition and age, but yet again, hello, we're not going to do it unless it's so gay.
Yeah. So gay in its soul and its essence.
In its essence. Oh, and there's also like Macduff is now a butch lesbian.
Hooray!
Hooray! And I can't give away like the big twist in the end, but it do be having to do with something very queer.
Hooray!
Hooray!
It's so good.
That's excellent. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with that next. And it's a play, isn't it? It's a play with songs.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so nice. Fangirls was 25 songs, 2.5 hours, 2 acts. And this is a play with songs. 3 of them are sung out loud by one person. The rest are fake can't say the word channel songs that I have written that just exist in the background.
Nice.
And it's so nice. It's so like lightweight and it's 6 people. And not that I don't love musicals, I love them.
Yeah.
But it's such a heavy lift getting a musical made. You know, like this is my 10th year of having Fangirls in my life.
Yes.
And there's like, it's still climbing and reaching new heights. But Mackenzie, I wrote that girl and I got her booked, and I've just never seen anything happen so fast. I'm like, this is what happens when you don't need dance mirrors. This is what happens when you don't need like a choreographer and radio mics for each actor. It's been a nice holiday to get to write a play and not a musical. I love musicals, I always will, but it's been a nice vacation to get to write something that's 90 minutes, 6 songs, like only 1 singer. It's like a treat, you know what I mean? It's a holiday.
Absolutely. This series of Represent has been recorded at the Content is Queen studio in Somerset House. Content is Queen is a podcast agency and community made up of women, people of colour and LGBTQIA+ people who wish to connect, create and collaborate using audio and podcasting. For more information, go to contentisqueen.org. So Mary, you've been very busy over the last few years, and I have got quite a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are also Doctor Who fans. And
hello.
so I feel I must ask you about the experience of working in Doctor Who, and again, working specifically playing a trans character, I think. And obviously working with, Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson and all of that. How did that come about, and how was that experience for you?
That was such an amazing opportunity. I just remember the tape came along, and it's like, of course, like always dreamed of being in Doctor Who, the park. And it was a trans-specific part, but also like nothing about her being trans.
No.
I mean, Russell is just like so amazing, and like has always been someone who's trying to champion queer and trans people and like get us, on the telly in front of people. I was so happy to be working with Russell, and like, it was amazing. Like, I think I had one scene in the start, and then we started filming, and then Russell sort of like put some more in for me, and like it was like that was really really nice. And I'm so happy that I know him now. He was just incredible and very personable and very nice. And working on Doctor Who was great. I mean, it was just like so fun and chill, and again, just like so queer. I mean, like, if Ncuti's there, it's like, I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna be good here. And I just had the most fun time. And also like the Doctor Who fans are incredible and amazing and so very queer and trans.
Yes.
What an honor to be part of that world, for sure.
Yeah, no, it was lovely, and I really appreciated seeing you in that as well. And I think it's so important that we see more trans roles in
for sure
television as well as in film and theatre.
I mean, I'm just so like moved by the idea of thinking of young trans people, trans women specifically, like on Christmas Day, sat with their families who may or may not be supportive, and seeing like within one of the first scenes there's a trans woman singing in a bar. I just think like, like if I saw that when I was younger, that would have really empowered me and stayed with me. And I'm moved thinking about that and like what effect that can have, especially around Christmas. I mean, what like that can be such a hard time for queer people. Really an honour.
I've got one more question for you, which I've asked to everybody that's been on the podcast this series. And we've talked quite a bit about workshops today. And I'm interested in the process of getting things from workshop onto whatever the next stage might be. And one of the things I'm trying to do to help that is to get people to talk about workshops that they've been involved with, or workshops that they've seen of shows that they would really like to see move on to the next step, so that then
like
hopefully
spotlighting work in development we know about.
And hopefully then people will be able to find something to listen to about it, or find something to read about it, and then when it comes up next time, those people will be able to go, yes, I've heard about this, Mary said this was great, or Yve said this was great. And then we'll be able to look for it. So we already know that there's a little
play called Mackenzie that's been workshopped recently that apparently was all right. But are there other things that you've been involved with workshopping, or other things that you've seen that you would really like to see?
I can name 3, and they're all Australian.
Yeah,
okay?
please.
So if you know about these, it's a bit niche. You know, you're kind of going to be not like other girls. You're going to be like knowing these Australian works. So one of them is by this gorgeous trans girlie, Cassie Hamilton, and she has written a musical called A Transgender Woman on the Internet Crying. And the score is like this incredible hyper pop score. Cassie produces her own music, and the score is it's like no piece of musical theatre you have ever heard or seen. You can find the EP. She's released the EP on Spotify. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
And it's had so many workshops and had such a huge response in Australia. I'm sure it's on the edge of a production. And yet, you know, as we know, musicals are expensive, and it's very, very hard to land the plane on getting a production.
Yeah.
And the other 2 I want to point out, there's a musical comedy duo in Australia called Mel and Sam.
Okay.
And they're super successful in Australia, but they are both theatre kids, and they have scored a grant to write a musical that's called Doof, and the premise is incredible. It's like 5 lesbians who go to a music festival every year.
Wow.
And then you discover that this year what's different is they've come to scatter the ashes of their friend who should be there with them, who's come every year. Which it's such a beautiful premise.
Yeah.
So they are developing that, and the early songs they've shared from that are just, their brains work at the speed of light, and lyrically they are so juicy and exciting, and there's so much plot in the songs, and that's brilliant. And the final one I want to shout out is a musical called Fig Tree, which is inspired by, you know, the idea of the fig tree that Sylvia Plath talks about in The Bell Jar, and all the lives we could be living. And it's written by a woman called Gillian Cosgrave, and it's like a beautiful 4-hander chamber musical about this couple who are deeply in love and decide, okay, well, maybe it is time to have a baby, but before they do, they decide they're going to have a fidelity Rumspringa for 6 weeks. They're going to live separately and have as many affairs as they want. And it's this moment where each of them are kind of looking at the fact that, like, wow, there's 1,000 lives I could be living. And yeah, that tension between spontaneity and stability, what do you choose? And things get kind of magical in this really exciting way. That's all I'll say. Yeah.
That sounds great. And
Yeah.
we'll definitely look out for all of those shows, and I'll put links to them
Love that.
on the podcast as well. So.
Ally.
Yay!
Valentina.
Ally.
What about you, Mary?
Okay, some things that I've been really excited about. I guess first I want to shout out to Piss Carnation, which is an amazing, duo of trans women who make theatre and experimental theatre. And they just finished a run of their show Ugly Sisters at Soho Theatre, which I think was just incredible. I was, so taken back by it. I don't think I've ever seen a show with 2 trans women who also made it, doing something so brave as that. It's an incredible show about Jermaine Greer and her relationship, her encounter with a trans woman. / relationship with, it's a whole sort of fantastical, like daydreamy, sort of amazing show exploring that. And they're both incredible, and I know that they're up to like new work together, separately, writing, making. So I just think we should all keep an eye on those girls, because I think they're incredible. The other thing that I'm really excited about is I just actually came off of a job at the Royal Court. It was a showcase for the Young Playwrights Award. And I got to read an amazing new play called Fox Hunt by George McCurry, which oh my gosh, it was incredible. George is a 16-year-old trans woman, and it is one of the most incredible things I've ever read by a trans person, or by anyone about trans-specific issues. It's about lots of things, but it's specifically about the Supreme Court ruling, and which is very recent. I was kind of gagged to open it and be like, oh, she's on it. Well, shit. And yeah, she just did such a good job. It's such a beautiful and clever piece, and I know that George is up to lots more, and making new work, and also performing. And I'm just so excited for her and what she's going to go on to do.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Sounds brilliant. Yeah, absolutely great. So hopefully, all of these things will be things that we can support and we can, look out for and see what happens with them next. It's been so lovely talking to you both today. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you everybody for listening at home as well. And I will see you all soon. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Represent, the Queer Musical Theatre podcast. The research for this series is funded by the British Academy Early Career Researchers Network Seed Fund and supported by Sheffield Hallam University. The episodes were recorded at the Content is Queen podcast studios at the Makerversity at Somerset House. For more information, go to contentisqueen.org. In next week's episode, we are joined by Fangirls star Gracie McGonigal and Ashley Goh from Babies to discuss the new musical The Phase, which they appeared in at the Vault Festival in 2023. See you then.